What is up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Powerline Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Ryan Lucas. All right, it has been brought to my attention. Well, I've known this for a while. I know that there's way more listeners out there than there is followers/subscribers. So I'm going to ask you guys to make sure that you follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to this on, because it's not me that cares so much. It's the people that you got to report the information to, or the algorithm that really cares about those stupid numbers like followers and subscribers, right? So just do me a favor, hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. I'll quit pestering you about it. All right, let's dive into this week's episode of Powerline Podcast. Enjoy. Guys, I'm, like I was just saying, super excited about this conversation. I think that there's a lot that this industry can learn about a conversation and through a conversation like this about heart attack, cardiac arrest, AEDs. Should we have them? Should we not have them? Those sorts of things. So welcome to the show, guys. Welcome to the show again, Matt. And
Thanks.
First time, Jack. Thanks for being here and making the trip down, the 9-minute trip down.
Thanks, Ryan. Happy to be here.
It's great to be back.
Yeah, heck yeah. All right. I like to start off these, if you've listened to these before, I like to start off kind of getting to know the guest a little bit. So tell me about where you're from and kind of a bit of your background.
Sure, absolutely. So really excited to be here. I'm Jack Maul. I work for Stryker Medical in our emergency care division. I'm born and raised in Houston. I'm the oldest of three, so I've got a younger sister, younger brother. Grew up several miles away from here where we are. And had a great, awesome, charmed childhood. Really fortunate, parents both together, and kind of grew up in this idyllic setting where I was very involved in swimming. So I was a swimmer growing up. Started doing USS club teams at 7 or 8 years old. So my time was pretty well occupied from school to after school club swimming in the Med Center or in Meyerland, and that kind of took me through high school and into college, where I continued at the Division III level. Certain people have kind of had career callings. They know from a young age they want to be a doctor, they want to be an accountant, they have certain things that they're interested in, being a scientist or researcher. I didn't necessarily have that like burning bush moment, and so my college experience was kind of a phase of discovery, figuring out what I liked, what I didn't like. And I always gravitated towards biology, anatomy, exercise physiology, things like that, and ended up majoring in bio. Staring down the barrel of organic chemistry kind of ruled out the pre-med track for me. I was, wanted to have a good time in college too, and was an athlete competing, and started to kind of think that something related to medical technology or being on the vendor side of healthcare would be interesting to me. And I ended up getting my launch at a home health and private duty nursing company headquartered in Texas in sales. I was actually a Starbucks barista working at the Starbucks down the street from here at I-10 in Yale, and developed rapport with several of my customers that said, hey, have you ever thought about doing sales? That's what they did. One was at a liquor distributorship, and one was in home health. And so I ended up fortunately getting, we all need our first break. I got my first break at a home health company. Did it for several years. As an individual contributor, as a leader of people, eventually got a chance to relocate to South Texas and work down there. I ended up coming to Stryker in August of 2017, so almost 7 years ago. And when people think about medical sales, I think a lot of folks think about being in the hospital, covering cases where you're giving a surgeon an implant, or being in the OR working on cameras. And I landed in this very unique space within Stryker. We're a Fortune 500 company. We do most of our business within the walls of a hospital. You may see our beds, you may see our surgical instruments or endoscopy towers. We have a division that is all about called emergency care, which is really focused on kind of the pre-hospital side of healthcare. And I've been really, really fortunate. There's an expression, sometimes you get it right the first time. I've been really fortunate in landing where I've landed because number one, it's one of two, there's some people that may argue with me on this one, but one of two like truly life-saving divisions within Stryker.
Sure.
You think about knee replacement or total joint, things like that, and that's more, I'd argue, life enhancing. The emergency care business and then the neurovascular business, which does stroke care, are kind of the two core life-saving businesses. And so I got to meet Matt within weeks of starting at Stryker at the Quanta Safety Conference in the Galleria area. And when I joined, I was still kind of familiarizing myself with this idea of an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest and AEDs and what are they for and where do we have them and why do we have them. And so over the last 7 years, it's been amazing. It's been I think part of what I love the most about what I do are the survivor stories. I get on a regular cadence, whether it's from Quanta or other customers, reports of our products, the products that we manufacture and sell to customers, being used to resuscitate someone, to bring them back from the dead. So I hope that wasn't too long-winded.
No, it's great. It's like an immediate thing too, right? Like immediate gratification, not, like you said about knee replacements or whatever. They are more of an enhancement thing, and over time, it's like, oh, you really helped my life, but that's over a couple of years maybe. But when you talk about just bringing somebody back from the dead, like that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's super rewarding and fulfilling, and it's really fun and awesome to get those emails or those phone calls. Yeah. So I'd say that's one of my main motivators of why I do what I do.
Some of the other medical things that are made are kind of like, there's lots of controversy around some of them and things like that, right? That we don't need to go into, but there is that there. But it's completely opposite with something like an AED. It's like a device that is actually working to save people's lives, which is so incredibly cool that you're actually a part of that. That's pretty dope.
And it's the best customer too. Working with our surgeon partners and dealing with hospital administrators has its own level of supporting providers is really rewarding. I think there's something different and really cool about empowering a lay responder to perform something like a resuscitation, and working with a normal person who's not clinical, who doesn't have a medical background, and equipping them with the tools and training to be able to respond on someone's worst possible day.
Because it doesn't take a lot of, which we'll go into after, like it doesn't take a lot of training to learn how to use these things either, right? Like really they're meant for anybody to be able to grab, put on, and use and save a life. Like that is empowering.
You actually open the lid and it walks you through it, and you can't do it wrong, right? Yeah. You still need some training, but it's very, very simple.
Yeah. Matt, why don't you just kind of reintroduce yourself?
Yeah, Matt Compher, Senior Vice President of Safety, Health, and Environmental here at Quanta Services. Amongst many other things, I get the privilege of managing the AED program here at Quanta.
So one of the biggest things I want to accomplish with this conversation is to educate, like I say, and to educate whoever's listening to this around things like the difference between cardiac arrest and heart attack, and then the availability of these devices out there, and a little bit about those, but also about getting these devices and implementing programs across our industries, whether that's the power utility industry or whatever industry. They need to be on job sites, and like you're saying before, Matt, there's no reason why these can't be out there. They're not scary. It's not scary to run a program like this anymore, and it shouldn't be. And we want to try to get that point across and show the teamwork that's going on here in order to make that happen. So let's start off with talking a little bit about those things, like an overview of what an AED is, the difference between cardiac arrest and heart attack, and some of those details.
Yeah, definitely. Heart attack, cardiac arrest are terms that I think over history have kind of been conflated and made to be more similar than they are. The easiest way I think of a heart attack is something wrong with the plumbing of the heart. You hear about terms like a STEMI or a widowmaker, where you'll have plaque that makes its way and blocks off an artery that feeds oxygenated blood to the heart. A cardiac arrest is a little bit different. It's not a little bit different. It's very different in that it's an electrical arrhythmia of the heart that causes the ventricles to pump in oftentimes a very erratic way. When you think about the four chambers of the heart, they typically pump in this very succinct mechanism to circulate blood to the brain, other vital organs. And in the event of a cardiac arrest, there's an electrical signal issue with the heart, which can cause what's called a ventricular fibrillation, or basically a quivering or fluttering of the heart with electrical signal, but that doesn't actually have mechanical capture to circulate the blood through the body. Okay. So, there's many different things that cause, to back up with a heart attack, a lot of times you'll hear about those symptoms: pain in the arm, shortness of breath, sweating. There will oftentimes maybe even be a little bit of margin of window to get to a hospital or an acute care facility to get treatment. In the event of a cardiac arrest, it's a sudden cardiac arrest. It happens instantaneously. The symptoms include someone collapsing, not coughing, not breathing, not moving. You'll occasionally get what's called agonal breathing, which is kind of gasping. And what that means is that the heart is not having the proper electrical signals that's communicating that blood circulation. So that's where an AED comes in. So what an AED does, and I think I learned this recently, Matt, I think it's really cool. It's one of the few medical devices that does both diagnostics and treatment. Mm-hmm. So what an AED does is it's a computer, and when you apply electrodes to the cardiac arrest victim or patient, it will interpret what that ECG, what that rhythm is, and make a shock or no shock determination based on what rhythm it detects. So in the case of a cardiac arrest, it will administer a shock. It basically resets the intrinsic rhythm of the heart and allows it to resume normal function. And so if caught early and an AED is applied early with a really coarse VFib that the device is very detectable, prognosis and survivability is very, very good in the event of cardiac arrest. Amazing. We see over 350,000 witnessed cardiac arrests a year. It's an epidemic, and I think old school thinking was kind of like, oh, it's that person's just time to go. We don't really know what happened, but it is. Our messaging is that it is an acute, treatable medical condition with the proper training, with the proper device and equipment. We can make huge impact on survivability.
What kind of things, like from the worker's perspective, or just from the people in the field, like what kind of things other than some of the ones you've already suggested are like warning signs, or like, is there any like I know you're not a doctor, but is there, from what you've seen or heard from all the stories, is there things that can be done or warning signs other than?
There's kind of this new space, I say new, relatively new space, focused a lot around screening. So you'll see especially youth sports leagues more and more participating in some level of cardiovascular screening prior to playing. Unfortunately, there aren't really warning signs to a cardiac arrest happening. We know kind of different things that can cause it. Commodio cordis, which is an impact to the chest right at the exact specific location and specific time, can induce a cardiac arrest. If you were watching Monday Night Football, the Damar Hamlin cardiac arrest that happened with the Buffalo Bills, that was an example of commodio cordis. You can hear about different things like contraindications of medicine potentially making a cardiac arrest more likely. A lot of times it's an underlying genetic predisposition that someone has lived their whole life not really knowing they have. You find out after the fact. So unfortunately, there isn't really a warning. And then obviously in our space, electrocution is a source of a cardiac arrest.
I was going to talk about that. What have you seen, or like within the workspaces that we operate in? Obviously electrocution, but is there others?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen 44 lives saved. So of those 44, there's been several that were induction, is what we see a lot, which is obviously electrocution. But when that AED is placed after an induction event, we've had really good success rates. We bring them people back, right? We bring that employee, the men and women out there doing the work, we bring them back. Now, we're working proactively not to have those type of events. But ultimately, if it happens, the AED saves lives.
Yeah, I've not been directly involved, but like knowing, obviously several people that just, it's crazy because induction, it doesn't take a lot to stop a human heart, right? 0.05 milliamps or something. Yeah. And I think in our world, that's not a lot.
It's not a lot.
That's not a lot.
And the chances of survival, I think, Jack, if you said if we get an AED to somebody within the first 3 to 5 minutes, the chances of survival just, they skyrocket.
And that's the thing too, is like a lot of times induction accidents, other than that, there's no like burns and exits and entries because it's such like a low voltage, quote unquote, that it doesn't cause a lot of like burn damage or things like that. So other than a stopped heart, that you really should be able to survive and live a normal life after, right? So
yeah, many times these people, there's no lasting effects.
yeah.
Their normal life, they full recovery, they're back to work.
Give us a history of Quanta's AED program and kind of how this came about.
Sure. I mean, this was really driven by our CEO, Duke Austin, an employee at North Houston Pole back somewhere around 2010, 2011, was actually saved by an AED. And from that point on, his passion for this industry, for the men and women doing the work, comes through in everything that he does. And he's like, we're going to get AEDs on the job sites. So for, 11, 12 years, whatever it's been now, forcing this program out there, making sure we have AEDs on every truck. We now have over 17,000 AEDs deployed across the Quanta system with 44 lives saved. And it's just been a tremendous program. And I think one of the points that we want to get across is, like, it's not scary to do this, as we were saying. Like, you can manage a program out there. And, we're encouraging everybody, let's get AEDs on every job site in this industry, whether you're a Quanta company or a client or a competitor. Let's all work together and figure this AED thing out. They save lives.
Explore or expand upon like what that program looks like. How did you dive into starting this, like building your guys' relationship, and then like implementing the program in more detail, so somebody could grab onto something like that and go, okay, well, let's try this.
Yeah, for sure. And the program both predates Jack and I, right? Yeah. So we have a small team. Amanda and Maheen really manage this program on a daily basis, and they do a great job to ensure we get out AEDs to every crew. The goal is to have one for our mobile crews in every supervisor's vehicle, right? So if you're a foreman and superintendent on one of a Quanta job site, we expect to have an AED there. If we have fixed locations, whether it's a job site trailer or an office building like this, we want to ensure that we have the wall cabinets. But getting AEDs out there, getting our employees trained, we put them in a Pelican case, typically under the back seat or behind the back seat of a crew cab, and put a sticker on the door and say AEDs here. And we've had just some great success with them.
Talk about one of those success stories.
Yeah, there's several. As I said, 44 out there, but there's a couple that always stand out. One of the most recent ones, Kevin Newcomb from Price Gregory. He was at a town hall where they're building a pipeline and bringing in all the members of the community to explain what's going on, and somebody has cardiac arrest at a town hall. As everybody's scrambling to figure out what to do, Kevin runs to his truck, his Price Gregory truck, grabs a Quanta AED out, brings it in, and revives this person essentially right there in front of everybody. I mean, what a great story. So that one I really like, kind of recently. If we go back a few years, and this one was actually featured in the AED video, but our employee from Longfellow, who was home on a Saturday in a small town, and his father actually has a heart attack just like a mile away. He jumps in his company truck, runs up there, and they're giving him CPR, and he pulls out an AED out of his company truck, and they put it on him, and he's alive today because of that AED. I mean, that's just really cool stories.
Yeah. So it's like you said, like 44 just with Quanta alone, and Jack's seen hundreds, and if not thousands of success stories now. Like, talk, Jack, about the construction of these things, maybe the development, how you got to the place that you're at with them now as well, and where they've come from. Yeah.
Great question. So there was a legacy business that Stryker acquired called Physio Control out of Redmond, Washington, so not too far from Vancouver, north of Seattle. And there was a physician there who was very interested in cardiac arrest treatment and electrophysiology, and initially designed kind of the first portable defibrillators on a breadboard. So we actually have a museum where they show this original, very kind of rudimentary breadboard design of a defib. That was back in 1955, late 50s, early 60s. And over time, we've just iterated on that product to try to create the most user-friendly, portable, clinically advanced device out there, while still retaining this core principle of sense of simplicity. In any manufacturing or technology product design, I think you can run the risk of over-engineering something and focusing a lot on features and benefits, and you can lose touch with what the intended use and the intended design philosophy of what this product is for. our hope is that these sit on the wall or sit in the back of the truck and never get used. But in the event that they have to get used by someone who maybe hasn't been trained in a year and a half, 2 years, and they've got to pull this out, and their coworker, their buddies on the ground, not coughing, breathing, or moving, we want to engineer these things to be so easy and intuitive to use. We joke that a child can use it. My kid will be in my office and he'll pop open the lid on his CR2 and know how to use the trainer just by looking at pictograms, and that's kind of underlies our design philosophy. So we're really committed to moving the needle on clinical effectiveness. We do a lot with algorithms on detecting shockable rhythms and optimizing CPR performance in the devices. What we won't do, though, is introduce unnecessary complexity to the actual use case of the device. So I think that's kind of what makes Stryker a little bit special.
Yeah, I've been in a couple of like stressful situations, like at work, but also in personal life, like high speed, head on car accident. Personally been in that, and I stayed conscious through the whole thing, was able to like assist and help. But I know like, one, your adrenaline is through the roof, like you're shaky, you're just trying to figure out what to do. So like in those situations, they are like high risk, like, you're fired up trying to like do something, bring this person back if they're unconscious. It's got to be simple, like keep it simple, stupid kind of stuff, right? Like that. Totally. So that makes total sense to, make sure it's as simplistic as possible. And Matt, you're saying this thing actually like walks you through.
It walks you right through. And the CR2 Plus now actually has Spanish and English.
No doubt.
So as soon as you open it up, you can, if you're a Spanish-speaking person or on a Spanish-speaking crew, flip it to Spanish, and it's just as simple. And it was really cool. And, I had an opportunity to visit the Stryker facility earlier this year. And what an impressive facility and people. And really my purpose was just to go say thank you. And we have, 44 people alive because of the work that they do every day. And I want to make sure they hear that voice from us. Like, they're assembling these things in a very professional, environment. And then they send them off. And I want to make sure they heard back from us. Like, we truly appreciate the work they're doing. And it was an impressive facility for sure.
Discuss the training. We've talked a little bit about it, but just discuss the training requirements in a little more detail, if there is.
Yeah, we include it in CPR training.
Okay.
Almost all CPR training anymore has AED. It doesn't take a lot more to add to your CPR training, so you just attach it to that, and you're good to go for 2 years.
So further to breaking down that program, what is that like? Where does training fit into that? And like, how would you design a program from scratch if it was just like break it down into bullet points?
Yeah.
Like this, and this.
So select the right product for your environment. You need something that's durable. You need to figure out where you're going to store it and how you're going to store it. And that could be different at different types of work sites. On a mobile crew, we found the Pelican cases to work very well. They fit right in there. They're durable. And they last, obviously, protecting the AED for a long period of time. So you need to figure that out, and you need to figure out your maintenance being just your inspections. Inspections sound scary. It's really not. You look at it, make sure the green light's on, and you check the date, and you log it, right? We want to make sure we're looking at them every month. And then it's just adding it to your CPR first aid training to make sure everybody out there has them, and then it's a matter of tracking and kind of administrative tasks to keep it going. As you bring new crews in, how do you get them in place, and that could be different, depending on how big your company is, how complex it is, but making sure you have them available to get them out there right away.
So, like with regards to rejection criteria, and then when you take a device out of service with the company, is it still good? Or can it be used? Can you rotate those through personal use? Like how do you deal with them?
So if we have one come up, which rarely if ever happens, we get it back to the manufacturer, we send it back to them, and they tell us what's going on, right? And we get a replacement out there right away. Anytime AED is used in an event, we bring it back in, send it in, and we actually get a printout that we can share with the medical folks, the doctors, whoever's treating that employee, so we can really see what happened. So they can really see what happened.
Oh, that's cool. I've seen, I have one of these at home that I bought from Quanta in the past, right? It keeps telling me that the battery's getting low, though, so I need to deal with that.
I might know a guy.
Yeah, okay. That'd be awesome.
Okay.
But how, like, should these be in personal use too? Like, what's your recommendation on that? Like,
Absolutely. I mean, that I think is a big frontier. You know, we over the years since I started, we've seen a big movement of AED adoption in the retail space, right? So now when you walk into your local Walmart store, you can rest assured knowing there's an AED on site. Local HEB Foods here in Texas, the list goes on in that retail space. So, you know, the market. What is cool about this market is it kind of should be an infinitely expanding market. We have some data around fire extinguishers and you know, the number of fatalities caused by residential and commercial fires versus the number of fatalities caused by sudden cardiac arrest. And there's a big disparity between, you walk through any commercial building, you're going to see 5, 10 fire extinguishers on the walls. Everywhere you go, you see fire extinguishers. And us in the industry, we kind of put our hand up and say, well, from a data-driven lens, we should have an AED for sure wherever there's a fire extinguisher. In the home setting, absolutely. We are actively targeting and marketing and aggressively trying to move these products into the home setting. You know, I think what's helped a lot is prices on AEDs over the years have come down a lot. Sure. So if you go, just kind of ironic. I mean, if you go back 20 years ago when the old LifePak 500 was in circulation, I mean, it may cost a customer $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 to get an AED, which for the average, you know, consumer in the U.S. isn't feasible. Now we're seeing with electronics manufacturing getting better and our ability to scale at volume, prices reducing. So yes, absolutely. I'm very much in favor, and it's a big testament to Quanta, the employee purchase program that's been set up. I think that's awesome. We do the same thing at Stryker. Yeah. We have an employee purchase plan, and I think we're going to see also critical mass changeover where people start to, as we get more clarity around like things like health savings accounts or FSA accounts, where you can have a tax-free purchase of an AED. You know, to even further take the sting out of it. That's something we're actively looking at and working on.
Yeah, and I want to make sure we highlight the employee purchase program for any of the Quanta employees out there listening. Hopefully you've got the communication. If not, here it comes at you again. But we have an employee purchase program. You can buy the same AED that we put on all of our job sites, which is a higher level, or we also offer a one that's just as effective, maybe not as many bells and whistles, I might say. So we affordably, we use our purchase price and then we subsidize a little bit to really encourage our employees to buy them and take them home with them.
Yeah, they're great for, like, I'm just thinking, you know, family's got a lake house that's pretty rural, and there's lots of stuff happening there all the time, and summer events, like, probably not eating right, and other things happen in places like that might induce something like this. Handy to have something on hand, right?
For sure.
Talk a little bit about the numbers, Jack. Just like, what are you seeing in America as far as like incidences, saves? Like, it doesn't seem like America's getting healthier as a whole. So, like, talk a little bit about the numbers that you see out there.
Yeah. So high level with the numbers, there's a huge disparity in terms of survivability by geography. So you could be living in, in one city, one county, and, you know, you have a very high probability of survival of an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, whereas if you're living in a different city, a different county, you have a low probability of survival. Those numbers can range between, you know, a 10% chance of survival to as high as a 60-70% in certain major metro areas. What causes that? What's the reason for that? I mean, we use the term in kind of the emergency care business, the chain of survival. In order for someone to survive, there's a chain of events that have to go right. You have to, at the early onset of the chain of survival, recognize a cardiac arrest, begin high-quality CPR, get an AED, and call 911. From there, you have to have first responders that are equipped with the tools and training to come over and assume care from the layperson, administer meds, have an expeditious fast transport to the hospital where more advanced care can take place. And this chain of survival is in our opinion, is all tied together by kind of two things. One is time, and the second is data. The ability to share data from, the onset of a cardiac arrest and what that initial rhythm presented to the time someone's in the cath lab at Memorial Hermann or Ben Taub and an electrophysiologist is making a decision on, do we do an implantable defibrillator? Do we need to get to the cath lab and treat it like a heart attack? What's going on? So yeah, to kind of put a bow on it, to your original question, we see this very wide range of survival and your chances being good. You know, some of the more kind of educated and knowledgeable emergency physicians in this space, I had one happen in Temple, Texas in the last year where we've built these monitors and these defib monitors and these mechanical CPR machines, and we've had all of this like advancement in terms of investment from the med tech side, more clinical features, more clinical benefits. We've had in a kind of a skyrocket level of performance in the technology aspect. But to us, the data shows that the prevalence of these AEDs and having a trained populace to recognize and act in the event of an emergency, that is the largest determining factor of whether someone's got a good chance or not, and whether a community posts good performance in this metric or not. So yeah, I mean, the other kind of thing that we're looking at is the opioid epidemic. I mean, that is a major public health concern and emergency, and different sources and different third parties recommend, in addition to being prepared with Narcan, being prepared with an AED. So we know that high quality CPR in the event that someone has an opioid induced PEA, pulseless electrical activity or asystole, high quality CPR that you can be coached on out of an AED really can improve survival in addition to the use of Narcan. So yeah, I mean, it's a constantly evolving, I guess, discipline within medicine, and it's kind of what I can tell you and what I know.
I love that. So we're in Texas, and summertime in Texas is 115 degrees. I've worked in northern Canada at minus 40 on a regular basis. How do these things hold up in the temperature swings?
Great question. They hold up very, very well. The main watch-outs on AED ownership of any AED is going to be especially around that low end of that threshold. When you drop below freezing and a device is exposed to sub-zero temperatures for an extended period of time, the electrodes are made out of a hydrogel, and so what you can see happen is those crystallize and maybe lose some of their adhesive qualities. And so really just being mindful of the low end of the temperature spectrum in the event that you had to pull one of these out and use it and your electrodes are frozen. We have customers that use them, and they typically rely on ambient body heat from the patient for 15, 20, 30 seconds to thaw those pads up to get good contact. But that's typically, from what I've seen, the bigger watch out on temperature related things. The devices will tell you, they will trigger an error code. Not even an error code. They will start chirping at you and you won't see that blinking indicator. And you can actually do diagnostics on the unit where you hold down the child and language button and it'll tell you device outside of operating temperature, return to ambient temperature, and you bring the device back in and the device is good to go once it has a chance to kind of return to that normal temperature setting. Yeah, best practice is always to pack in and pack out your device if you're going out to work in the field.
Sure.
Try to keep it climate controlled. Just like with any electronic product that uses batteries and capacitors and things like that, you don't necessarily want them to be experiencing crazy temperature fluctuations all the time. But in the tens of thousands of AEDs that I've seen placed into the field, I can't even off the top of my head think of one temperature related issue that's happened.
It's enough right there,
which is great. Yeah,
100%. What are some other things that people should watch out for? Common challenges, I guess. Within,
I just think it's ensuring that we remember that they're there, that you're checking on them, because it's kind of put it behind the back seat and forget about it a little bit. We try to talk about job briefings. Where's your AED on your job briefing? Just so everybody on the crew, we don't know who's going to go down. So we need to make sure everybody on the crew understands where it is, make sure we have training in it, and just getting it out there. But, back to the temperature thing, we work, from northern Canada down to South Texas, as you said, and we have not had any temperature issues. A lot of, I believe, you're in the pickup truck, obviously that's climate controlled. It might drop down while we're working or whatever, but we've had really good luck with them.
What other data exists, if any, on like numbers within the construction industry, saves, things like that?
I don't know any off the top of my head, Matt. You may have something better. It's just such a hazardous occupation in every form that I think in oil and gas and in the utility verticals and specialty construction verticals, we would probably see a higher than average deployment of AEDs by nature of long work hours, the amount of just exposure that profession affords. I don't have any specific data off the top of my head, though. Sure. It's a great question.
I still get, like we were talking before, I think that was before we hit record on this, so I still, within the last month, have got 2 DMs asking about AED programs and whether an AED should be on a job site or should not be on a job site, or what it looks like to start this program. That's why I was super excited about this conversation. And it's not it's a simple device, really. When we see it, I know it's complex inside, but it really should be on every job site, like you said. What's the future of the AED space?
I hope it's a really robust future. I think the future of the AED space is we're going to see increased adoption in the residential and home market. I think that we are going to continue to iterate on and improve the way that data is communicated out of these machines. That's where I think most of, at least from our side, most of our innovation and technological investment is going to come from. Is how do we leverage data, the power of data, to improve outcomes? What does that look like? And integrating with first responders, and integrating with dispatch, and integrating with hospital and post-event review softwares that teams use. I think that we've seen, even since Matt and I have been working together, replacement intervals on pads and batteries have in general in the industry gone up. So you used to have to touch these things 3-4 times over the 8-year warranty of the device to keep them maintained. You just have to touch that one time at the 4-year mark now to make sure you're rescue ready. We've got a 4-year pad, a 4-year electrode. And so for a program like Quanta's, when you're talking about the number of units they have in the field and remote locations and that are driving around, just managing that administrative burden of managing an AED program has gotten so much simpler with improvements in shelf life on pads and batteries. I would love to see, and this is my wish list, I would love to see us, we've got a device called the Lucas. It's a mechanical CPR machine that's really common in the fire and EMS space. I think really, solving for or creating value in the public access CPR space, that'd be something on my wish list I'd love to see is, do we have a product, do we have a device, do we have something that in a really meaningful way can change the way CPR is delivered in addition to the use of the AED. So I guess is as good as mine. I mean, Quanta's been a thought leader, even with our upstream and portfolio marketing team, as we design next generation products. We rely very heavily on voice of the customer, and they're under NDAs, and I'm not allowed in the room when they do that stuff. So Matt can't talk too much about it, and his team can't. But that's kind of where we're headed, I think.
I think the batteries and pads being able to go to 4 years was the biggest step that I've seen since I've been around managing. It was a big deal.
Yeah, it's amazing when you don't have to like you said, touch it every year or whatever, every 6 months, like rubber gloves or something.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about on the administrative side of managing the program. Is there any special tools out there right now, even apps or software or anything like that to help manage that? Or
all that's available, and we have our own. We can scan a QR code up, and uploads into the system, and we check off that it's been inspected. It's nothing high tech. I mean, I guess 5 years ago that was probably high tech. Now it seems to be kind of old, but it works, right? Yeah. And it's just ensuring that it's getting that inspection out there, and we're following up on them. With our mobile workforce, these things are moving all over the place. So you can imagine just trying to keep track of them. It's quite a bit.
Is there anything else you'd say to other companies or businesses wanting to start this program?
Well, one, if you don't know where to get started, call us. We just recently, my team had a call with one of our direct competitors, hey, how's the AED program going on? We're kind of, we're trying to get ours up and running again, and can we just talk to you? We just sat down with them for an hour and walk through our program. There's no trade secrets here. We're doing everything we can to get AEDs on all the job sites and the industries we serve. So give us a call. We'd love to talk to you, show you what our program looks like. And like I said, it's not scary anymore like it was.
Jack, is there anything else that I haven't asked or we haven't touched on that's popping in your head?
No, I mean, one thing is, one thing that keeps coming to mind is we hear in our space from time to time, phrases like the best AED is a close AED and similar phrases like that. And I think while there's an element of truth to that, it doesn't, I think it's a little bit, I think there's a little bit more to it. So as Matt just stated, people who are looking at or considering adopting an AED program, do your due diligence and don't view this necessarily as a commoditized space. I mean, there is a big difference between makes, models, and so really do a thorough due diligence on what's going to be best for you, for your application, and make it an intentful decision. So that's my only thing I would throw out there. And the other piece I would say to what Matt's comment was, which summed it up perfectly, but these types of programs take a real champion from the safety side. There's, just like with any organizational change, you can be met with objections from finance, objections from risk management, all kinds of objections in trying to get a project like this moved through your organization. And so I would just want to empower the safety professional that understands the value and what these are used for to go to bat for it and fight for it. That's all I would say.
These are also designed and made here in America?
They are, yeah. The LifePak CR2 is made in Redmond, Washington. It's an awesome manufacturing facility. Matt's had the chance to visit, and it's really, really cool. One thing we do that's neat too is when we have a save, all of our lot numbers, all of our serial numbers, the entire manufacturing process, we have quality control systems that document our technicians on the line who actually built that device.
Oh, wow.
And so when we have a save and we can tie it to the serial number of the unit that was used, we actually have a program where we will pin on the white lab coats of the technicians that built the device. They will pin with the save.
That's goosebumps right there.
And we've even had a chance to meet survivors, meet the people that built this machine and run it off the line. So I think any chance someone is able to come up and see where the magic happens up in Seattle, I'd love to extend the invitation to you as well. It's a really cool, profound experience.
Yeah, it really is. And I want to get back, like, there can be roadblocks, whether they're perceived roadblocks or actual roadblocks. Don't slow down.
Yeah,
work hard to get these AEDs out there. We can talk money. How can you put price on 44 lives? Yeah. Right? We just got to get them out there. They save lives. Whether it's a work event or a personal health issue or a member of the public, like, let's get them out there.
That's the thing, right? It's like you're an entrepreneur. If you're thinking about, implementing a program like this for your company, like, you're creative in that way. Get creative. Find the way to, come up with the money to do stuff like this. It's important that it happens. So, yeah. Thanks, guys, for taking the time to do this. This is a great episode.
Yeah, before we get off here, I just want to say one last thing. We save 44 lives. That box doesn't save anybody's lives without the actions of our employees. 100%. So I truly want to thank our employees that took action many more times than 44 saves we have out there. So it takes a whole team to do this. My team, Amanda and Maheen, that are managing it on a day-to-day basis, local safety professionals, local foreman that's doing a monthly inspection, and then the people that responded during a time of need. So just thank all the Quanta family that's in that chain out there. So appreciate them. Yeah,
it goes back to, like, I think about the times I spent in, safety CPR classes, first aid classes, and oftentimes there's guys or girls that show up to these classes, and it's like, oh, it's a safety day, it's a training day, I'm just gonna put my feet up on the desk. But when you can see actual visible results, and it's important to pay attention too, right? Like, I want to extend that to my line family out there that's listening, and the ones, who you are, that you show up to these training classes and just kind of put your feet up and don't pay attention. But it's important to pay attention because you're dealing with lives here. So that's cool. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I hope you guys got some value out of that episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I just want to draw your awareness to a couple of other things. So we make these podcasts, yes, but it's not the only thing that we put out as far as content. Our social medias are full of valuable cuts from the podcast itself, as well as just a bunch of other educational stuff and entertainment. So go follow us at Powerline Podcast on all social media platforms. And then also YouTube. I don't think that a lot of you are aware of this, but we don't just load these podcasts onto YouTube. We also make vlogs, which are super educational, entertaining, great place to direct people to learn about the industry, learn about the trade, or just learn about what's going on within either Quanta or the Powerline industry in general. So hit up our YouTube channel. Again, it's at Powerline Podcast. You can catch those vlogs on there. We also load a bunch of other extra content in video form. We try to up the quality every time we do this. We try to up that quality. So hit up the YouTube channel. Make sure you're subbed to all those platforms. Appreciate you guys. Hope to see you again soon, or we'll see you again soon. Peace.